Hey, I'm Brian Van, SportBikeTrackHere.com. Today we're going to recap our Yamaha R7 first ride. Okay, so a couple of weeks ago, Max Van and I went down to Barber Motorsports Park to ride with our friends from Sportbike. Track time. Good friends of the people that own and run the organization, as well as all the coaches. Love being there. That's one of my favorite tracks in the world. One of my favorite places to be. It's great to be there with the kid when we're both riding, because that doesn't happen very often. Last couple of years, I haven't really ridden much. I think last year I rode one time, one day. This year I'm hoping to change that. Bringing the R7 into the mix is going to allow me to do that. Let's talk about our initial setup. We mentioned this in a previous video. I installed K-Tech suspension front and rear. With this build, I wanted to do something that I thought would mimic what one of our customers would do to use this for track days, right? Maybe even beginning some club racing. There are some very high-end builds of this model, right? A great example of that would be if you look at the MP13 Racing, Yamaha R7, right? Melissa's done an amazing job with that bike. It was very evident with the results she's gotten last year. This year they have Kayla Yakov on the bike. Hopefully we see her at Road Atlanta. But at Daytona, you saw that bike shine with Stefano Mesa on it. All those R7s you see on the grid are heavily modified, even from the state that you see with this bike. So what I wanted to do is install the DDS rear shock. We put a 9.0 spring on it, and we installed the DDS pressurized front fork cartridges. I started off with 9.0 springs. I wasn't getting far enough into the stroke, which I was surprised by, and I went down to the 8.5s as the weekend wore on. Clickers, I set them to the spec offered in the K-Tech installation manual and the user manual, and I found those, for me, to work fine. What tires are we using? I used the Michelin Power Slick 2 tires. One size front, it's a 120 front, and then we used the 190 rear. Hot tire pressures, I ran 36 PSI hot in the front, 26 PSI hot in the rear. Definitely got reasonable wear from the tires. They lasted, they felt great. These are excellent tires for just that purpose. Before we go any deeper, let me just say this. I had a blast riding this bike. It was a ton of fun. Felt amazing in the corners. Where it was different, and where it probably exposed how lazy I've gotten over the years, is it's not this bike coming out of the corners. That GSXR 1000 is epic. My buddy Chris Ulrich helped me set that thing up. It's dialed. It's so fast. It's stupid. You can get in the corner, throw the anchor down, right, squeeze the trigger, come out, and it's not hard to get to a decent lap time on that bike. Now, when you get on this, that has somewhere about the early 70s of horsepower, right? All your weaknesses will be exposed, and it forces you to do things better if you want to go faster. The best lap time I managed was a 42 flat. That's significantly slower than what I would do on that. But, as previously stated, I had a ton of fun on this bike in the corners. One of the other changes that I made is I went down there with a 520 chain kit. We showed you that install, and I used stock gearing, right, for the first ride. It didn't take but a couple of sessions to figure out that that was way too tall. So I went from a 1642 to a 1542, and that really woke the bike up quite a bit. It made it a notable difference. It made it that much more fun to ride. And that's really what I'm focusing on here is, did I enjoy this bike or not? Brakes. We removed the ABS from the bike. We installed the Spiegler non-ABS brake line kit, and I took some pads that I had here in stock that are good pads that I've used before. They were the Vesra RJL XX pads. Felt amazing on the bike. The brakes on this motorcycle felt amazing. Ride height for the rear is the stock setting, right? The stock length, that's the way the K-Tech shock comes. That's the way we installed it and ultimately ended up leaving it. The front forks are at the stock ride height setting. I did not alter that either. And once again, the bike was stable at the pace I was running, into the corner, through the corner, and out of the corner. Max took the bike out for only one session, right? He was really focused on riding his Ninja. With the Moto America season coming up, it was important that he got some seat time on that. So he only took it out one time, and he took it out when I still had the stock gearing on it, which was pretty funny. And he comes back and he's like, "Dad," and remember, there's a big difference between riding ability, right? Talking about a 17-year-old kid who's fast, right? And a 52, soon to be 53-year-old dude who is no longer fast. And to be fair, even at my best, I probably wasn't as good as he is right now. He hated the gearing, okay? I made a change right after that, full disclosure. And he said one thing he noted is that getting the bike to finish the corner and stay on the line, the way he likes to ride, he felt that it fought him a little bit there. It's important to note that when he's riding that Ninja, right, you get to a certain spot, right, you get through your apex and the bike is pinned and you're trusting the bike to finish completely. If you watch these young guys ride, and girls, you're gonna see they're going edge to edge on the racetrack and oftentimes using the curbing as well. So if it doesn't want to finish properly, it can put the rear tire off into the grass on the exit, which would be negative, right? So he said it wasn't horrible, right? Once he noted the first time that he couldn't just ride it in the same manner as he did his Ninja, he altered his style a little bit and he got himself down on this bike, right, into the high 30s with it completely stock. It still has the stock slipper. You know, we didn't put the yo-yo dyne in it yet. That'll be done for the next ride. On to that. How did I feel about the slipper? I think the OEM slipper is pretty darn good. You know, I've had twins in the past. It's been a while, but I've had twins in the past. And I remember way back in the 2000s, the early 2000s, those clutches, right, they didn't have any slip from the factory. And there was a ton of engine braking and drag. This did not suffer from that. It was actually, the OEM clutch is pretty darn good. For the next ride, we're hoping to do that at Grattan. We're gonna install the slipper amongst a few other things, right, to kind of help with the power. I've got the Yoshimura Airbox. They claim somewhere like around a 9% power gain. And it's verified, obviously, on the dyno with a stock engine. I guess the OEM airbox in this thing really has this thing choked off. So we're gonna go ahead and we'll do an install video on that. We're gonna get that in there. I have a Norton lightened rear rotor. We're gonna put that on for the next ride, take a couple pounds off. Plus it looks amazing. And I have the Norton soft pull throttle spring. I didn't find the Motion Pro quick turn throttle, the Revolver 3. It looks like they have it developed. I haven't seen any of them in stock yet. As soon as that does come in stock, we're gonna install that. But reducing the effort it takes is gonna simply make the bike a little bit easier to ride. So all in all, what do I think? You know, would I recommend this bike to somebody to use as a track day bike? You're gonna have fun on it. The answer to that is maybe a little complicated. If all you care about, right, is coming off the racetrack and seeing a certain lap time, if that's the only thing in the world you care about, and let's say you have a bigger bike, you have a 1000, you have a 750, you have a 600, this may not be the bike for you, right? Because what happens to a lot of us, and it definitely has happened to me, you ride a big bike like that comes out of the corner so hard and it's so fast down the straightaway, you can do a lot of other things wrong in the coolest parts, which are, of course, the corners, and you can make up for all of it on the drive, on the straights and maybe getting in just a little bit deep, right? Pick up a lot of time and be super duper lazy. So if your only focus is lap times, you don't care about the rest of it, may not be the bike for you. If you love the corners, if you love working to improve lap after lap, using, and it has a reasonable amount of power, reasonable, okay? It's not a 600, certainly not a 1,000 or a 750. It has a reasonable amount of power. The amount it has is probably gonna make it a little hard for you to get yourself into a lot of trouble, right? So I know one of the areas that I for sure struggled, and I worked on it the times that I rode, was getting on the throttle aggressively enough, early enough. You get used to riding that 1,000, right? And I would always turn the traction control pretty much all the way down to the lowest setting on that bike. So you had to utilize throttle control. To go from that mindset that I've had for the last several years now to the just, you need to be more aggressive and wide open. Like when Max and I rode together, one of the comments he made to me, he's like, Dad, he goes, you look right in the corner. He goes, you really suck coming out, right? He goes, you're not early enough. He goes, and you're not even close to being hard enough on the gas coming out of the corner. So those are things that I'm gonna have to continue to work on, and I'm looking forward to the challenge of working on it. So if you're one of those riders, you really wanna improve upon your riding, you like the idea of not completely destroying tires, like destroying a rear every day pretty much. You have a bigger bike and you ride a lot of sessions, you're eating tires, you already know that. This is gonna be a good choice for you. I think for somebody of reasonable skill, the setup that we have on it, I could take this bike and ride it for seasons and have a great time on it. It's gonna be super reliable. It's not gonna eat tires. It didn't cost a ton of money from the factory, and it certainly didn't cost a ton of money to get it where it's at. I think a lot of people are gonna be super stoked with just this. Like I said, we're gonna do a couple of things to see if we can't squeeze a little bit more power out of it, and we'll report back on those findings. So for the next post-ride update, the things that I plan on having on the bike are gonna be the Yo-Yo Dyne slipper clutch. That will probably help a little bit over the stock. I don't think it's gonna be unbelievable, but it'll get into the corner a little bit quicker because we're just gonna have a little bit less engine braking, which is beneficial. And for sure, I'm really looking forward to this Yoshimura Airbox. A little bit of additional power, and you're talking, you know, I think it was like 8-9%. I think that's really going to help. Until then, this is our STG Yamaha R7 first ride recap.